Ready to rock and roll? All right, today's is going to be simple. You're like, yeah, right. None of your stuff is ever simple. It's never short, I should say. But I want to bring up the topic of time commitments. A little different version of the story. You know, one of our fundamentals is always talked about the idea of setting expectations and so forth. But one of the big deals is setting a time frame for which things get done. And we see that all the time. So, you know, as you know, a lot of times we're asked that. And my perspective is that, but also a little different. So, you know, for me, I'm always, you know, one of my jobs in Paul's and Jim's and others is to sell and to generate business. And I would say that the number one complaint that people have that leads us to a discussion is the failure to meet deadlines. It's a really big deal. And, you know, there could be a lot of other things. And in a way, it's kind of depressing. You know, all the engineering we do, all the design and the creativity, and yet deadlines become this thing that pops up to the top. So I bring it up as an item that just, as you move forward, your training, you take on more responsibilities, that item is a big pressure item. There's no way around it, Brian. You're constantly dealing with it on the sketch plan. It's even harder on the sketch plan because they're rarely giving you enough time to do it. But regardless of the situation, whether it's a small task or a big task, making sure, you know, there's steps along the process. Is first figuring out what's the deadline. Generally speaking, try to give yourself as much latitude as you can. It's always better to beat the deadline that you say. Give yourself some time and push back if you have to. But once it's set, got to work hard to meet it, or let them know early enough let them know what's going on. And this whole thing came to mind because you know, Paige is racing from one report and study to another, and so she's always juggling her deadlines. And one thing about Paige is she's really obsessive about her deadlines. She really knows when they are and makes sure to get them. And here, Tom, we're doing the project. It's 5,000 Flat Rock Road. That's an interesting case study where they're amending the floodway, and Pannoni is the engineer, but they asked Paige to step in and do the study because of her familiarity with what's going on, and candidly, they figured she could do it better than them. That being said, so we're working through them. Tom Fries, a very nice guy at Pannoni, he's one of their senior vice presidents, starts an email by saying, by week's end as promised. That wasn't an accident. I mean, clearly for him, he was appreciative of the fact that whatever she said she was going to do, she did it. And he's probably figured that out. He's used to that with her by now because of the number of things we have to do. Remember that that's really important because frequently the person we're doing the work for has to answer to somebody else, or has somebody wanting something that they've made a commitment that said we could get it done. So taking the time to make sure that you've committed to a deadline, that you know you can get it done, and if it's a problem, letting them know as early as possible doing it. Builds the relationship here, helps us to maintain and develop and enhance our clients even more because they've made it very clear to me that that's an issue. So with that, thoughts or challenges of, I mean, how many of you are now having to set your own deadlines for when you say to your clients or to others or when you're getting done? I mean, you're certainly doing it daily.
Yeah. Daily with Rob, absolutely.
Even with Fred's pressuring you, and Don?
Pretty much daily.
Yeah, it's harder. Have the three of you been having to set deadlines? I mean, John, you do it. You get it because of the...
Yeah, and I mean, like the Ryan Holmes stuff too,
Yeah.
just because normally when they're asking for that, they're already like want to be building the house.
Right, they're behind.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in your situation, they're trying to coordinate crews. So it's really important. It's,
Mhm.
it's hard, but it's really important. Christina, you've been working on the biggest project in the office, so you're just stuck with whatever deadline.
Well, the pool project's a lot of the
Yeah,
times
you're right.
too, especially with Mike, because of course he wants everything done as soon as possible. Mike from Sylvan Pool,
Mm.
so usually I'll tell him, you know, I can get it to you. I can't get it to you now, but I can get it to you end of day tomorrow. Or I can get it to you by end of day Friday, stuff like that. So it's just setting expectations for him, so
Mhm.
he's not constantly hounding me, and he knows that he's gonna
Mhm.
get it. So.
So once you get in that rhythm and you earn that trust, that's like a big deal. You know, for him, my guess is he would tell you that his biggest complaint is engineers don't meet the deadlines, and he's got all kinds of people lined up that are expecting answers for that. So that has to be really hard for him.
I think the other important thing too is not even just deadlines not being met, is even just setting the deadline or just even responding to them. Because I feel like I've heard stories in the past from clients who left other engineering firms that came to us, and the reason was it's like we didn't hear anything from them in a month. Like they wouldn't answer any email that we sent to them in here, and it's like as long as you just answer their email, like that goes a long way too.
It is mind-boggling sometimes when you hear things like that. It's like you don't have 5 minutes to respond to an email, like unless you're on vacation for a month. I don't.
Well, I would tell you that it's very possible somebody else would tell you that actually the number one item is not so much missing the deadlines as it is failing to get back to them and answer. So, John, you're 100% right. They're 1 and 1A, whatever order we can pick. If as project managers you can do those 2 items well, then everything else starts to fall into place. You know, one of the things about Nick is, one of the things when Danny was talking to me, we were looking about, merging, and doing the acquisition. He said, one of the things I knew was, he said, I never bothered to go compete for work if I was competing against Nick. Because they said he always met his deadlines and he always got back to them, type of deal. So yes, if you can do those 2 things, it's really impressive. I mean, as you're kind of alluding to, kind of as a part of it, it's like, really? Like, that's all you're asking me to do to in order to start to create a raving fan? Because in the end, remember, although this is about, everything we do is focused on the idea of creating a raving fan. Those 2 items are as important as just about everything from an external perspective. There's lots of challenges of what's going on internally. Those 2 items are crucial to the process. Then we get into the whole thing, I was almost going to bring up again about the expertise of knowing all the other consultants. I had it again this week on calls. I needed to know what was important to a traffic consultant, blah, 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 whatever. I went drift from there. That's sort of the third component of it. But these 2 things, as basic as they are doing it. One thing to go in mind in your references, Christine, about setting the expectations is, in a way, there's sometimes you want to get off the call without committing to something because you're not sure or whatever. You're really better off. In the end, sometimes that works, the majority of the times it doesn't, because whatever we want it to be, it's never what they want it to be. They're always going to want it sooner. So if we got off without setting that expectation and working on a deadline, it's a problem. And I have to tell you, Brian, I give you credit. You've managed to start pushing back to Rob some. I mean, you told him, this is when I'm going to have it. And earlier he would have made that much more complicated. I'm here to tell you we want to do realistic things. We want to have a sense of urgency. There's no doubt about that. However, we have to be honest about when we're doing it. And if they balk, then then it's okay to say, listen, I need to check to sort out some things. Nothing like a spam call. To sort it out, buy yourself some time. I'll have to get off or whatever the case may be. If you feel backed into a corner, we don't want to promise something we can't do. That you could do 10 of them on time and they always remember the one that isn't done on time. That's the tough part about this business. So work to try to can when you can, make sure there's an understanding of what is a reasonable timetable that you can manage. Like I said, Brian, I've noticed more lately with you that it's, you told them what it is and work from there. And I'll wrap up. In these situations, you know, the goal of us is, you know, we don't have teams per se with the idea of being able to pull resources from everybody to help in and pitch in at the time. This isn't to be the Lone Ranger type of deal. You know, our job is to help you meet those deadlines. And if somebody's pressing an unrealistic deadline, then that's where Jim, Paul, myself, or Sherry has to step in and work with that client to say, here's what we can do and can't do. But anyway, so that's just it. You know, I'm kind of, you'll see here I go over stuff that's obvious and you probably know it, but I just want to highlight them because it's really important that we go over it over again to set that stuff up. So meeting deadlines, and you know, Paige has got a friend in Tom. He thinks she's, you know, great because she said she'd have it done, and this is when she did. So I ask you to kind of keep it that, and then we can go from there. Alrighty, very good. Thank you.